On 12th June 1878, Donald McSwan was born. His father, William, was a bullman and general labourer at the Glenacle distillery in Clackmannanshire, while his mother, Christina, looked after their 6 children at Glenacle cottages near Menstrie, where the family lived. By 1901, the young McSwan was working alongside his father at Glenacle as a clerk. Hoping to improve himself, he took an evening class in shorthand typing, and in 1908 decided to move to England following a job offer at a Newcastle hotel. He then got a job at Tunbridge Wells Spa Hotel in Kent. While there, he met Amy Page, known as Sarah, whom he married in October 1910. On 12th May 1911, Sarah gave birth to their only child, William Donald McSwan. In June 1916, Donald returned to Menstrie for the funeral of his father. This was the last time he was ever in the village. Following the First World War, the family moved to London, where Donald learned shorthand, and in 1922 he was employed by London County Council, but by 1929 he worked as a shorthand typist at the Shoreditch Technical College. During this time, the family bought several properties, but chose to rent the houses where they lived. However, William moved out of the family home in 1932, setting up numerous businesses, including a pin table business in 1934, trading as automatics. In 1938, he had an amusement arcade business, as well as a sweet shop, which he sold the following year, and wound up the pin table business. In 1941, he began working for the Henderson Tank Company as a salesman, and from 1942 until 1943 worked for the art magazine Engineers. He also rented premises and set up a welding company, although didn't weld himself, but did the clerical work in the office. Less than a year after war broke out in 1939, McSwan registered as a conscientious objector. Nonetheless, in 1941, he received call-up papers, so called for a 6-month deferment. It's known he was terrified of being sent to war. To facilitate this, he moved around constantly, hoping the authorities wouldn't find him. During this time, McSwan was also involved in fairly petty criminality, although he did appear before magistrates on a number of occasions. The family kept to themselves and didn't really keep in touch with relatives, so when they disappeared, it went unnoticed for some time. It was in 1937 that they first met John George Haigh, and he made contact with them following a 4-year stint in prison for fraud, and visited them from time to time. Young William liked Haigh, who he once called charming, but his intentions were far from honourable. At this point, the McSwans were fairly well off, with Haigh only interested in their money. He made arrangements to hire 3 basement rooms from Albert Marshall at 79 Gloucester Road, which led to Stanhope Mews, but more importantly, it had a drain. Haigh moved in on 6 September 1944, with just one thing on his mind: murder. That same day, he forced McSwan to write a postcard in shorthand to Barbara Stevens, a workmate, who Haigh claimed to have feelings for. On Saturday, 9th September, McSwan spoke to another colleague called Woodsman and told him he was going away for the weekend. Woodsman later stated McSwan was adamant that he would only be away for that short time. Haigh and McSwan met at the Goat Public House in Kensington High Street. Then they went back to his basement. In February 1949, Haigh stated that he hit him on the head with a cosh and he was dead within 5 minutes or so. He went on to say he was appalled by the dead body but felt no remorse for what he'd done and simply went off to bed. The following day, he placed McSwan in a drum and poured sulfuric acid over the body. He choked on the fumes during much of the operation, but his actions worked and the body dissolved with only the teeth remaining. He poured the sludge down the drain. McSwan was 37 years old. He stripped McSwan of his watch and other valuables, and even travelled to Glasgow and Edinburgh, from where he purported to be McSwan, writing letters to his parents explaining he was trying to avoid call-up and was dealing in property, but in fact he was emptying his bank account in monthly increments. Suspicion arose when Donald McSwan told Woodsman that he was hoping for a call from his son, as it was unusual not to hear from him, and on 5th October, his room was re-let, with his father paying the rent arrears. Naturally, Donald took over the reins of the amusement business. Haigh went on to sell that business in May 1945. During the early months of 1945, Haigh prepared to benefit more from William's murder, although he was hastened into it when his landlord gave him notice to quit by 6 July 1945. Leading them separately into the basement, he murdered Donald and his wife, presumably on the last day Donald was seen alive, 2nd July. Haigh was running out of money, and in addition, with the war at an end, the excuse that William was evading call-up would no longer wash with the McSwans, and awkward questions would be asked. He couldn't risk that. The old man's murder turned into a bloody affair. The police later assumed it was an axe that had been used, but Haigh insisted it was the cosh. He disposed of the bodies in exactly the same way as the sons, he later confirmed. Haigh produced identity cards and went on to sell the McSwan properties. On 18th July, he travelled to Glasgow where he arranged power of attorney as he impersonated William McSwan. In all, Haigh made over £5,000 from the murders. He spent the next 2 years living on and gambling away the money. Early the following year, he shot and killed Dr. Archibald Henderson and his wife Rosalie in a workshop he now rented in Crawley in West Sussex, then forged letters so he could take their assets. Just 6 days later, on 18th February 1949, he killed Olive Durand Deacon, a wealthy solicitor's widow. She too was shot, and like all his other victims, was dissolved in a barrel of acid. On 28th February, he was questioned by police, who made a gruesome discovery at the Crawley site. They found 28 pounds of human fat, gallstones, a partially dissolved left foot, and other pieces of evidence. 2 days later, he was charged with the murder of Olive Durand Deacon. His trial began on 18th July 1949, and he was found guilty of her murder. He was hanged at Wandsworth Prison on 10th August. He was 40 years old. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.